Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum. It's just gone 16 after 8 o'clock. And online we have Ashraf Essop. He is an immigration law attorney. And we're going to ask him to give us some insight or the latest update regarding the Palestinian refugees that were stranded in in South Africa on a plane, a chartered plane at that. And this was for about 13 hours. And of course, this was all happening at OR Tambo Airport. And then, of course, lo and behold, Alhamdulillah, lots of parties, different organizations, including the Gift of the Givers and other media organizations, came to the fore and assisted to the best of their ability. There has also been some negative reporting from non Muslim organizations and a lot of misunderstanding regarding the stranded Palestinians at OR Tambo. And I'm hoping that, inshallah, Ashraf Essop will be able to clear up all of that as well, and why there is this misunderstanding. And added to all of that, of course, Dr. Imtiaz Suleiman from Gift of the Givers has been attacked by the South African Jewish Board of Deputies. They are kind of saying that they've cast all sorts of aspersions. So there's just so much going on behind the scenes regarding this. But I would like to commend Dr. Imtiaz Suleiman, Gift of the Givers, and all of the other role players, not forgetting Zahira Bam Ismail, Caring Women's Forum, and so many more people involved in trying to assist to the best of their abilities. But let's hear what immigration attorney, law attorney Ashraf Essop has to say. And I think he's going to really give us a very balanced picture of the situation. Ashraf Essop, Assalamu alaikum to you. Welcome to the program.
Alaikum salam, and thanks for having me.
Thank you indeed for your valuable time. And of course, whenever we talk to attorneys and people in the legal field, we do know that we're going to get a picture that is not skewed in any way whatsoever. And we will get the true reflection of exactly what went down and where we are now regarding the Palestinian people. Over to you, Ashraf.
Well, at present, everyone knows that the minister exercised his discretion correctly to break the impasse on the passengers not being allowed to disembark for a number of reasons. Now, clearly, the passengers were disembarked and were not admitted as asylum seekers, and this is very important. If you are admitted as an asylum seeker, then you have to make application at the port of entry for what we call an asylum transit visa. And you're given 5 days to make your way to the refugee reception office, which in Gauteng is based Victoria Marabastad. That didn't happen. And if that doesn't happen, you have a second tier chance while you're in the country and you've come through a proper border, port of entry, and you haven't been given a transit visa or no requested same, then you still have an opportunity to go to the refugee reception office and file with Immigration Inspectorate a good cause, and then proceed with your application. Now, it's interesting to see that none of these things happen. So what we have in the country is visitors' visa, people on a 90-day visitors' visa. It's also interesting to know that not all the people that arrived on that flight entered South Africa as visitors. Some of them had transit visas and they moved on. So the group that is left behind present are here legally on a visitor's visa. Now they'll have to decide what is their future going to be. Should they want to move along the lines of, let's say, a study visa, and then they would have to ask the minister, look, can you waive the requirement that I had to make this application from abroad, as is demanded by the Immigration Act? And the minister may consider that in the interest of education, and he may allow that. Now, these are all precedents that are already existing in law. For example, we have a large number of people on the Zimbabwean exemption permit. And technically, that permit has now been extended to 2027. But there was a time where those permits had come to an end, but they were children on a study visa. So the minister may take that into account. So there's no one pathway for each and every person. There could be people who have critical skills, who similarly may request a waiver. For example, if you're in the engineering space, or, there's 209 critical skills. So they can transition from being visitors into critical skills. Now, in the event that you are also a asylum applicant, you could then, if you have the necessary skills or requisite know-how, in certain instances, it's not all academic, then again, you could transition in terms of the Ahmed decision, which is in Constitutional Court. You can transition out of asylum and back into the immigration status. Now, it's important to remember that the precedent of people coming knocking on the door and applying for asylum was set about 2 years ago by somebody sponsoring 180 Afghani nationals on a trip as tourists to Zimbabwe. After the 30-day period, they came knocking in Messina. And the Home Affairs reaction, which is quite understandable, was, no, we're not allowing you in now. Unfortunately, it went to court, and applying the law, and this is very important, for people that say that South Africa is, let's say, porous. But the law was applied. South Africa operates with the rule of law. We can't have people just acting on what we would call popular opinion. We have to all respect the law and the Constitution. The Constitution vouchsafes a number of rights that are incorporated in the Bill of Rights. And the Bill of Rights is the cornerstone of South Africa's democracy. So you could see that there was everything that was done according to the law. And indeed, that group of Afghanis were admitted into the country and were entitled to apply for asylum. And the judge was very clear. The person at the border cannot make that decision. He has to oblige and give the applicants their 5-day transit visa. He cannot make an assessment. No, and I tell you this is very important, nor can he say go back to Zimbabwe. And the judge was very clear on that. There was a tense moment at the ORT when there were some suggestions, and we don't know where this came from, that they should go back to Nairobi. But of course, that impact, as I say, was very, very well done by the Minister of Home Affairs. He is the minister in charge of the Border Management Authority, and he made the decision that he added to that the intelligence that needs to be gathered about what exactly happened. Now, you'll be familiar with various news outlets now making claims from certain Middle Eastern publications about what happened behind the scenes, etc. That's not for us to speculate because we don't have the evidence, and I understand the president has called for an inquiry. So I'm sure that whatever questions we have about how they came, who sponsored the charter, how they ended up here, was this the ultimate destination? Because there's some reports that suggest that they thought they were going to Indonesia or other areas. But no doubt, after the inquiry, we'll get more and better answers.
Okay, so Ashraf, you referred to the matter where they could have applied for asylum. You also indicated how that process would have gone forward. Is there a difference between asylum seekers and refugee status, or is it the same thing?
No, it's not the same thing. When you come in, or your first step is to seek asylum protection. And then during the course of that asylum process, if you are recognized, and this is from an internal investigation by the Standing Committee of Refugee Affairs, if you are recognized refugee, then refugee status is offered to you. But because there's such a huge backlog with these asylum seekers, Treasury has indicated it will take up to 63 years to get through the backlog, current lot of, let's say, applicants that are applying for refugee status. So you could get at the end of your application one of two results. You are a recognized refugee, which then transitions you from an asylum seeker to a refugee, which is more permanent, because only refugees along the line may be entitled to apply for permanent residence. And you can see from the historical background of South Africa, where people from war-torn areas like Somalia, etc., are bona fide asylum seekers that then were given refugee status. And ultimately, some of them became citizens. In the case of economic migrants, the ZEP was brought in precisely to address the huge numbers of people that were seeking asylum, and the system couldn't cope. And then the minister at that time stepped in 12 years ago and said, we'll give you limited recognition as people exempt from asylum and the Immigrations Act. And that lot of people were recognized under the Zimbabwe exemption permit, or they called it various things. Over the years, it extended to Angola, it extended to Lesotho. And there were literally thousands and thousands. Now, the status of those applicants is they were given until 2027 to transition to ordinary immigration visas if they meet the category. Now, that's easier said than done, because the Immigration Act now recognizes that you can only obtain a work visa if you meet certain minimum conditions. And I mean, they're quite stringent. You need to actually earn 100 points. But if you have a critical skill, let's say you're an engineer and you registered with the engineering body, etc., then you get 100 points already, and then you'll be given a critical skills visa. So the critical skills visa actually points to the lack of skills in South Africa. And the Immigration Act itself makes provision for the fact that South Africa will recognize the importance of foreigners contributing to the economy and the growth of the country. It's in the Act itself.
So clearly, this also addresses one of the reasons for these critical skills is because of our high unemployment rate in South Africa. And I guess that's one way of government ensuring that we don't have lots more unskilled people coming into the country, where we already have an overload of unskilled, unemployable youth in the country. Your thoughts around the naysayers, the people who are pushing back on these Palestinians having landed at OR, and the support groups that went out in their droves to assist the ease of their situation. And as I indicated in my intro, Dr. Imtiaz Suleiman came in for a lot of flack, unfortunately. And then we also have groupings like Abahlali Mamjondolo, who are very anti-immigrants coming into the country, saying that they're going to voice their objections very, very clearly. How is all this, you believe, going to go forward with certain groups within the country pushing back on the Palestinians and the support that they are being given thus far?
So to be clear that Dr. Suleiman and Gift of the Givers and other organizations are known internationally and locally for giving aid wherever and whenever it is required. They were there during mining incidences, flooding, etc., etc. is an extremely helpful, resourceful man. Now, if somebody says you must give help here and not there, that is a problem that they have to deal with. This is a humanitarian organization. And contrary to the narrative there, he didn't charter any plane and he didn't bring any refugees into the country or potential people that are looking for asylum into the country. That is clear and it's a recorded fact. Regarding the fact that there are a number of people or organizations that are opposed to foreigners, I think it's interesting to know that the Immigration Act itself was aware of such a problem at the time of its drafting and amendment in 2002, because one of the stated aims in the preamble is it speaks about xenophobia being avoided and the rights of foreigners being protected. So historically, South Africa has always had, the problem of foreigners coming into the country. The fact of the matter is, it goes back at the time politically to Paul Kruger, who passed the 800th Act. When he saw that South Africa was rich in resources of gold and diamonds, he actually passed an act that says there shouldn't be foreigners working on these things. Later on, that was amended to include permanent residence permit holders. So you can see already historically that was the case. With the British coming into the Republic as well, and then inviting Indian and indentured laborers back 165 years ago, it was a similar thing. So the law reports are full of discrimination against foreigners. The wording that you're seeing in present legislation of undesirable and prohibited, etc., comes from the 1900s. That is how far back it goes. So there's always this position of putting resources against resource and creating the narrative that people that are not here should not share in the country's wealth. But the fact of the matter is our gold fields and all our mining was developed by foreign labor. And this has constantly come up and been exploited. Now, years and years later and generations later, South Africa is still struggling with the same narrative. Be assured that the Constitution applies to everyone in the Republic without fear and favor, including foreigners. And they receive all the same protection as everyone else. As you've seen, there's been a number of amendments to the Immigration Act where the court has found certain provisions unconstitutional and has ordered a rectification. On the ground, however, we can understand that due to lack of education and unemployment, there's a lot of competition for resources. However, again, back to the Immigration Act, one of the most favored and fastest way is people that want to open businesses here and have to go through the DTI. Now, I want to be clear, it doesn't apply to asylum and refugee permit holders. It only applies to investors. You've got to get the approval of TIC to open their own business and make sure that you're employing at least 60% South Africans and complying with the other laws of South Africa regarding businesses. And now those businesses, one of the twin peaks is that you've got to pass down skills and create jobs. So again, there are contributions from foreigners that are positive for the country. So that is now real job creation brought about by foreign-owned companies.
So, Ashraf, moving forward now, how do you see this scenario playing out? And I have no doubt in my mind that you too might have been at OR Tambo as this was all playing out. You clearly know your stuff. You are a true professional in your own right, being an immigration law attorney. What's the next step then, Ashraf, for the Palestinian people, these Palestinian people that are now currently in South Africa? I guess what's going to also need to happen is to ascertain which of them would like to remain on in South Africa and which of those would decide to want to go elsewhere. Like you indicated, Indonesia, I think one of the other countries mentioned as well was India. So if that was their choice of destination, there is a strong possibility that they will then move on. But in the meanwhile, for those that decide to move on to Indonesia or India or wherever, what happens to the remaining people, and how are we as South Africans supporting them whilst they are in transit?
So I was not at ORT. I'm just, trying to unpack the legal side of how things should be, and
Uh-huh.
maybe it isn't like that, but that is the law. And you see, the rule of law is very, very important for everyone to observe. If you don't observe the law, then you take the law into your own hands, and that absolutely leads to chaos. We've seen that, like a recent case law that says it's unlawful to prevent people who are here on foreign documents accessing medical health care. No doubt that's going to, turn into, you cannot take the law into your own hands. This is one of the fundamentals of a civic society, that you don't have that kind of thing. Now, back to the choices that people make. There's a theory that these people didn't know where they were going. They were, whichever organization they dealt with, and however money passed hands, all that will come out in the investigation. But apparently they were promised medical assistance in Malaysia and Indonesia. Now, apparently, that route has been closed. There's another theory that life is so miserable. I mean, there's bodies lying under piles of rubble. There's no water, there's no health care, there's no food. Then if you have little children, there were so many little children here. What would you do? What would you do but to flee from that kind of environment? Whether that was motivation or not, we don't know. We don't know why this decision was made. Nobody has been able to interview the passengers that came on a legal level. That is up now to the state to determine. Now, let's say they avail themselves of the asylum seeking route. Well, that will be captured and it will come out as information. And that will inform the refugee reception officer whether he's going to be giving them asylum or not, or denying it. And if he denies it, again, South Africa has generous provisions in terms of the law. The decision has to be lawful, reasonable, and procedurally fair. If it is not, it can be taken to a judicial review. At the judicial review stage, the judge is an independent party. He will determine. It's not that every asylum seeker has succeeded. There are people that have failed the test in the court of law, and then they've been sent back. Then we know that there were over 55,000 illegal immigrants in the country. That means people that had come from all over had no documentation, and Home Affairs at great expense had to hold them, charge them, and then deport them. So, there is a system that's working, but we don't always see the results. And then at the end of the day, you're seeing a number of interventions by the Department of Labor. They will want to insist, and there's changes coming as to how many foreigners can be occupied and the quotas, etc. I think government is very aware of the problem and is moving, but government has so many challenges. We have so many commissions of inquiry, but government, I believe, is doing the right thing to try and find out what they could do for every applicant. Whether these applicants stay or not, nobody knows. It's a decision only they'll make. You must understand, they also have the Palestinian Authority ambassador here. They can also take advice from their, let's say, local ambassador. That's open for them to do. And we don't know what's happening on that level as well. So let's wait and see.
Okay. Undoubtedly, lots of hard work and investigations are probably going to start happening or happening already behind the scenes. And I should also imagine that as far as these Palestinian people are concerned, they wouldn't be keen on giving interviews. They wouldn't be keen, and whoever is taking care of them, once again, all these civic organizations like Gift of the Givers and others are working hard at making the Palestinians as comfortable as they possibly can till their fate is decided going forward. People would want to know where they house people. I think human nature being what it is, very inquisitive, wanting to interact with these people. But at this point in time, I don't think it's a good idea. Their privacy does need to be respected. And also, it is really about waiting on the outcome of the investigation and the decision taken by government. Ashraf Essop, thank you indeed for your very deep insights on this matter. And of course, you should have such deep insights. You are an immigration law attorney, and we value what you shared with us today. So thank you once again. Go well, and salamu alaikum to you.
Alaikum salam wa rahmatullah. Thanks for having me.
Absolute pleasure. It is exactly 8:42 a.m. That was Ashraf Essop, immigration law attorney, and I thank him really for being so precise or so succinct in his explanation of the situation of the Palestinian people currently in South Africa. And for now, it's a wait and see game, and we all pray and hope that it will be an outcome that is most suitable and pleasing to the Palestinian people. 8:42 a.m. news and views on Salam Media. We're going for a break, and when we come back, we will continue our interviews on the show.